What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to a Coast to Coast podcast episode. Today, we'll be going over the NFL draft. We'll be recapping it. First, we're going to start off with our biggest winners of the draft. I think it's the thing you got to take away. Obviously, if you want to see what we thought about the first 10 picks, go below, link to our Instagram. You can check that out. We rated each of the 10 picks. Got a lot of heat out there, so if you want to go join the comment section, go at it. But let's get started with our biggest winners. Jose, take it away. Give me your first big winner.
My first big winner here is the Miami Dolphins. I think they just had a lot of great picks that I loved. They took Jalen Waddle in the first and Jalen Phillips. They took my boy from Oregon, Javon Holland, and they just addressed a lot of needs that they had. I mean, Tua got his guy in Waddle. They bolstered their O-line with Liam Eichenberg, a great Notre Dame 3-year starter who learned under Quentin Nelson and Ronnie Stanley. And they added to their defense that can afford to take a risk on a guy like Jalen Phillips because their defense was already so great last year. And they added a good secondary piece in Javon Holland. I mean, just a solid draft overall for Miami. This team is destined for – I think they had a breakout season last year, but I think they're destined for like an even further step next season.
I 100% agree with that.
Carson, take it away. Who's your first team?
My first team, I have the Panthers. I mean, I know everyone was surprised with the Horn pick, but I think once that initial shock went away, it's actually a really great pickup because you're getting a potential franchise lockdown corner, and those are very, very hard to come by. I also really love. We'll get to him when we do our favorites, but I love Terrace Marshall Jr. going at the end of the second round. He's a first round talent. I think reunited with Joe Brady. He's a perfect replacement for Curtis Samuel, who they just lost, who's going to the football team. They got solid line options with Christensen and Tommy Tremble coming out of Notre Dame. They also got one of the best, running backs coming in the draft, in the fourth round, Chuba Hubbard, who's going to be, replace Mike Davis, who'll be a solid backup to CMC. Really solid picks all around. I think, with the addition of Darnold, I think this could easily be a 10-win team. There's always teams that kind of go from last to not last, but go from pretty bad and then they jump the next season. I think this is one of the best candidates for that. I could easily see them being a 10-win team.
Yeah. All right. So for my first winner, I had the Tennessee Titans. I think they snagged a guy in Caleb Farley who fell down the board a lot. Was projected as one of the top cornerbacks taken, but with his back injury, it fell him down. But if he doesn't have back injury problems, he's going to be a very good corner. And I think that's something the Titans need after they've lost a lot of players with Adoree Jackson and Desmond King going to different teams this offseason. Obviously, they got a tackle in Dylan Redunce. Obviously, we just talked about in our Sunday talk that he was a guy from North Dakota State who impressed tremendously at the Senior Bowl. So good for him. Also got an inside linebacker in Monty Rice, a very talented defensive back in Elijah Molden, another interior guy in Rashad Weaver, who was a dominant figure for that Pittsburgh defense, who was very good. I myself know because I went against the game when Miami played them, and they were a very strong defensive line. And also some other guys. They got two potential projects out there at wide receiver with Dees Fitzpatrick and Racy McMath, which I think is something they got to look for because that wide receiver core is very much so depleted. And then they got a ball hawking safety in Brady Breeze out of Oregon. So very good draft for them. I think they went really under the radar. And, I think they could have drafted tight end. I think they would. There's a guy that I'll talk about later who's one of my favorite picks. I think they should have picked up, but otherwise a great draft for them. So, Jose, we're running back with you. Second team that you thought impressed.
Yeah, my second biggest winner is the LA Chargers. They had a great first-round pick in Rashawn Slater, a guy who I really wanted at 12 for my Cowboys. Sadly, we didn't take him, but they secured their left tackle for the future, a guy who's probably going to be a day one starter for them. And they also addressed corner after they released Casey Hayward. They picked up Asante Samuel Jr., a versatile inside-outside guy, great value in the second round. And they also picked up Palmer out of Tennessee, who's a great vertical threat. I mean, we've said it over and over. They need that vertical threat, the guy who can stretch the field, run those deep routes. And hopefully this guy can be that for them. I mean, they're really showing commitment to Herbert, surrounding him with talent and pass protection. And they also got a guy, Chris Rump, in the fourth round. Who's a pretty good pass rusher. And, can be a rotational piece developing under Joey Bosa. So I just really like what the Chargers did.
All right, so we're looking to Carson. Who was your second biggest winner?
Yeah, I really like what the Vikings did. A very, very savvy move. They traded back and got more draft capital, and they still ended up with the guy that they really wanted, Christian Darrisaw, who fell to them. So yeah, it's a great move by them. Also, very solid upside and talent play. They got Kellen Mond, who had a lot of hype coming in as like kind of a sleeper QB. Someone that can learn under Cousins. And doesn't have to start right away. And I think, a project with someone that has a lot of upside and that can mold to be like the QB of the future. And then also they got a starting guard in Wyatt Davis, who, really talented, come out of Ohio State, also help out that line. And I like seeing smart, savvy moves. And I think just like trade back, get more capital, still get the guy you want. I think that's, a major dub for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for my second biggest winner, I'm going to have to take the Baltimore Ravens. I think in the first round, they did lose Orlando Brown via trade, but I think they replaced him well, getting some other offensive linemen out there. I mean, they only got one offensive lineman, but I like what they did with their first two picks in the draft. They got Rashad Bateman, who I was very high on going this draft. I've seen a lot of tape on this guy. I think he's going to be a fantastic wide receiver, and he's exactly what they're looking for. Basically, I think he's going to be a better version of Sammy Watkins, more athletic. Then they got, Jason Owe, also known now as Odafe Owe. I think a fantastic pass rusher with a lot of talent from Penn State. Didn't give a lot of production out there. Then they got a good guard in Ben Cleveland, who's going to be good for their run scheme. And then another guy, Sean Wade, who's, got blown up by Devontae Smith in coverage. But I think is a guy that I think the Ravens can develop into a good talent. And then another guy who I think has gone under the radar, who I know because he destroyed my team in a game. I'm going to read these stats off to you guys. I want you to know what you think this guy should go, what round of the draft. So 86 receptions for 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. Where would you expect a receiver like that to go? Which kind of round?
Third, fourth.
Yeah.
So
this is second or third.
Yeah. So this is Tylan Wallace out of Oklahoma State, an absolute speedster in the slot out there. I think he's going to be a great weapon out there for Lamar Jackson to have. Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace. So great additions for them, I think, overall.
Wait, what round did they get him in?
They got him in the bottom of the fourth round.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I think very good stats for this Oklahoma State wide receiver. So that was a team that I like. So, Jose, who was your last favorite team in terms of winners?
Yeah, I was speaking to one of my close friends, Diego. He's a Cleveland Browns fan. And we were talking throughout the draft. He was like, we need to address linebacker first round. And he was kind of mad when they took Greg Newsome because he was like, okay, our secondary is already so stacked. Like, we've got Greedy, we've got Denzel Ward, we just got John Johnson. They just signed Troy Hill. They took Greg Newsome in the first round. And then in the second round, look who fell to them at 52. Well, they traded up for it, but they got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the guys who many people has a lock for a first-round pick. Many had him touted as, one of the best linebackers in the draft. He's an athletic, hybrid-style linebacker, hard-hitting, can play some coverage. And he's just – I think he has the biggest ceiling of any guy not named Micah Parsons. But, yeah, just a really overall great draft for the Cleveland Browns. They also added a super speedy guy in Anthony Schwartz, who's really going to help stretching the field and provide some verticality for the Browns. So yeah, Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I think I got to agree with you on that one. It was a team that I was looking at as well. So Carson, who else do you have as your biggest winner?
Yeah, real quick, just gotta shout out Schwartz. If anyone's gonna be build the next Tyreek Hill, he should have some consideration. That dude literally has Olympic level speed. He was a insane track runner at first, but they're just you're so fast, why not put you on the football field? So shout out to Schwartz. I just want to list off two real quick. I'll do them both really quick. First, the Bears, just the fact that they traded up and got Fields, super ballsy, finally got their franchise QB, and also getting Tevin Jenkins, who I think was a first-round talent, but they got him late in the second. That's just only going to help Fields, and also Montgomery, Cohen, going to help them out a lot. And then the Patriots, just the sole fact they didn't even have to trade up to get their quarterback. They got to stay at their position. They didn't have to lose any draft capital. Mac Jones fell to them, which I think was all, pretty big surprise. And then they still got a really high upside pick in Christian Barmore, who I'm surprised fell to them that late in the second round. So just two really solid picks for both the Bears and the Patriots. Just getting their quarterbacks when especially the Patriots, they didn't even have to trade up. So
yeah, definitely. And then just for my quick one, I think it was a under the radar winner, honestly, since they didn't pick till the second round. I think the Chiefs did a pretty good job in what they got in their draft picks. They got Nick Bolton out of Missouri, who's a very good linebacker prospect, and then Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, who I think under 1,400 snaps as a pass blocker, didn't allow a single sack in Oklahoma. Obviously, those defenses out there aren't the greatest that he's going against, but still very big number to see, especially for this team that needs, a good presence out there on the O-line. We saw what happened. I mean, due to injuries, they didn't have Fisher, they didn't have Swartz. And then getting Cornell Powell out of Clemson was a good pick as well, since I think their wide receiver core, just because they have Travis Kelce and Tyreek doesn't mean that they have the greatest receiving core ever. It's pretty lackluster besides that. They got some McCole Hardman and Robinson. So I think getting Cornell Powell was a good choice for them. And yeah, that's what I'd say were my winners. So unless anyone has anything else to say, we can move on to our biggest losers. And Carson, you can start it off.
Oh, dope. I got my winners. So we all have some pretty solid picks. So my first loser, Green Bay Packers. Just one, the fact that Rodgers just, started off with a massive bomb, like right before draft night, telling them that like he doesn't want to be there anymore. That's a massive L. And also the fact that they still didn't do anything to help him out. They drafted a corner, which I think they've only drafted like one offensive player in the last like 8-9 years. Crazy. And just tough to watch Rashad Bateman, who I think would have been a perfect fit for this team, go like 2 picks before them. Really tough to see. I mean, I like Josh Myers, who's a solid center prospect, and I do like Amari Rodgers as well. But I think just, that's just not enough, to help the case that Rodgers should stay. So I think just the Packers just, a lot of L's for them. It was a pretty tough night for them.
Yeah.
Jose?
I mean, Amari Rodgers will probably be the only A Rodgers on roster after this year. But yeah, I mean, I don't think Eric Stokes was a bad pick. They definitely needed to address corner. And I think this draft, like, let's say they are able to package A-Rod for a super mega package from the Broncos that I've heard, rumors about, then this draft doesn't look so bad because now they're drafting, for life beyond Aaron Rodgers. They address a need at corner. Obviously, their guy, Kevin King, got absolutely burnt.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Eric Stokes is a good player. Amari, he's a good receiver. I mean, he's not a bad receiver, but yeah, I would have, if they are planning on keeping A-Rod, I would have liked to see them go offensive in the first round.
We talk about their package real quick? Pause from the Broncos.
So I've heard.
So it'd probably be Surtain, maybe like Sutton. They probably have to give up a receiver too, and then some picks.
I've heard Von Miller. I've heard they're willing to throw Von Miller in there.
No way.
Because okay, they would probably throw in Drew Lock, Von Miller, and some draft capital, or like a receiver or something. Just because Von Miller is kind of aging, he's on a huge contract, and if they're willing to risk it all for A-Rod, they're kind of betting that he's gonna get them one at least, kind of like the Peyton Manning situation. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
And I think Von Miller is on the same level as A-Rod in terms of just like
value.
I'd want Chubb. Do your best for Chubb.
Yeah.
But see, I don't know if they need that because they got Rashawn Gary, who had a very good season last year. They got Zadarius Smith. I mean, they're going to probably cut Preston Smith. And so, I mean, you probably would want – I mean, they don't have any linebackers on that team, which kind of is unfortunate. Neither team has a good linebacker that they could really trade for. So I think it would have to be draft capital. I think Surtain would be the guy you want because you could tell him, oh, you already have Fuller, you already have Callahan, you already have Roby. There's no need for you to have him. So that'd be crazy, though. So who knows if he's on the move? Wow. I mean, all this stuff's been coming out lately that he wants the GM fired now. So, but honestly, I'll get into my loser, Jose. I talked to you about this already. But I think the Cowboys
Oh
made
wait,
no sense of what
I
they're.
didn't say my loser.
Oh, you go ahead then.
Wait, you can go. I'll just go after you. Go ahead.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
All right.
I'll
We'll
take
wait
my
on. We'll
loser.
wait on that one.
I'm sorry. I gotta say the
You're good.
Cowboys though, but they went
I had
out
the
and they
Cowboys
drafted
too.
Micah Parsons, which was hard. I mean, they wanted to get the corner, but just didn't fall to them. We all thought Sertan was going to be there, but the Broncos made a wild move and took him when no one thought that was. That was probably one of the less needs on their roster. Honestly, I think Kelvin Joseph was very good. He had a very good game against Alabama this year against those star-studded wide receivers. But then it took them all the way to the fourth round to draft an offensive lineman when there were so many other talented guys that could have got there. And instead of going out there and getting the guy from UCLA, they could have gotten Jalen Mayfield instead. I think there's a lot of other prospects they should have gone for. I mean, they could have traded up and got Jalen Mayfield at the end of the round, but then they go out there and get Jabril Cox as well. So now they have 4 guys that could be potential starters at inside linebacker now with Van Der Esch, with Smith, with Parsons. And you can't really put 4 linebackers on the field in the NFL anymore. So, I mean, kind of questionable draft decisions by the Cowboys. I mean, I myself recognize that I would want to put the Niners on here, but it's hard for me to put them on there on my own list. But the Niners also made some questionable moves, which we talked about earlier, drafting 2 running backs. What sense does that make? But, I mean, we got our guy in Lance, so I can't get too mad. But Jose, I'll
Can I mention something real quick about the Cowboys? That was also a big L. They traded with their division rival, the Eagles, and watched them take a wide receiver that's going to burn them for the next few years. So that's
but the Giants would have
tough.
taken him anyway. The Giants would have taken him anyway.
True.
That's true. That's
It was
true.
going to go to anyone in that division.
It was kind of like a pick your poison type deal.
That's fair.
Rather give it to the worst team in the division.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, my loser. I don't want to talk about the Cowboys. It's sad. It's sad. But my loser is the LA Rams. I mean, they didn't have that many picks to begin with, and they're not going to be picking in the first round for until I'm 30 years old. And then you take a mediocre receiver at best, like a guy that's going to be, just get a few snaps here and there, probably like a guy that's not too different from guys you already have on roster.
He's a slot guy, and they have Cup.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got Reynolds, they've got Woods, they've got
Reynolds
so
is
many
gone.
guys.
They have Van Jefferson.
Oh, Reynolds left.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they've got Van Jefferson. But yeah, and then they took Ernest Jones, who's a special teams linebacker, over guys like Jabril Cox, or Barron or Nick Bolton, who projected way better at that spot. Jones was a reach, and he's just limited value for the Rams, who really needed a linebacker. You had a few needs going into this draft, and I feel like they did not address any of them. They just didn't really get better when other teams in their divisions, such as the Niners and the Cardinals, got better this past offseason.
It's not as bad for the Rams just because their team is just they're in win now mode. I don't think their rosters is still solid, but those are all really great points. I saw it, I was like, why? Receiver, you guys are solid on receiver.
Hey, the highlight of the Rams was their draft room. They had to show up the Cardinals from last year. We all saw the Malibu house that they had out there, and then the picture of Roger Goodell in the background. All they wanted to do was show off their social media. So congratulations to them for being a flexers, having their house in Malibu. So we'll move on. Carson, who is your next loser?
This one's pretty obvious, but I mean the Texans. Just the fact that they're the worst team in the league, and then they don't have a pick till the 3rd round, and then they really just got no impact players. They got a decent wide receiver. I mean, they got a quarterback, which they might end up needing. Most likely they'll end up needing. David Mills, who has potential but still a project, and when you have a quarterback like that is a project, it's all about fit, and I think this is the worst place for him to develop. I think it's kind of like a Josh Rosen situation where it's no matter the talent or whatnot, it's just hard to develop in a situation like that. And just tough watching the Dolphins, have, like you guys said, have such a great draft with, basically all what could have been the Texans picks. So
yeah. One of my losers was also the Texans, so I'll just add on real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's just what are you trying to accomplish with this pick? Are you planning for life beyond Watson? Does this mean you're going to roll with Davis Mills? It just seemed kind of like a panic pick, too much of a gamble, for something that for an organization that's already facing so many other major setbacks, like losing DeAndre Hopkins, JJ Watt, and probably Deshaun Watson. And then later on in this same draft, they also traded 3 picks to move up and select Nico Collins, who is just a really head scratching move. I mean, he's not a bad player. He's got really good size. He's got good speed. But I mean, trading 3 picks to move up and pick this guy, it's head scratching moves for the Texans.
Definitely. Was that so? That was your loser, your second loser.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I'll get on my next one. I mean, it's hard for me to pick in the loser because obviously I go to Miami. So I got to pick the Buffalo Bills, though. I think they made some questionable moves. Just kind of take a look at it. Greg Rousseau, he's an interesting prospect. He's a guy who had 15 and a half sacks, who only trailed Chase Young in his last season playing with Miami. But he got all these sacks from attacking inside linemen, which isn't what you're going to do when you're in the NFL. I mean, this guy measures out at 6'7", 266. So, I mean, does it make more sense for him to play in a 4-3, a 3-4? But I'm pretty sure, if I'm not correct, Buffalo runs a 4-3. So he'd be playing on the edge out there, which makes it a little bit difficult. But we'll see. And then otherwise, they go out there and get Carlos Basham, who I think is another good prospect. But still, why didn't they dress running back? They should have taken Javonte Williams in the first round instead of Russo, because I think they still could have, Basham's still a good prospect because now they have no really good talent out there at running back. Or else they could have gotten other guys later in the rounds, got a Chuba Hubbard, gotten a Michael Carter. They didn't really address the position, which I think is the most glaring need on that team because they have no ability to run the ball. All they have is the ability to basically throw it to Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, and Stephon Diggs. So I think that was really just, a real bum pick to see from them. Then, I mean, they went 2 offensive tackles, which, they do need another guy out there on the right tackle opposite of DJ Humphries. But otherwise, why didn't you get a running back? It just makes no sense to me. I thought it was clear that they were going to draft one. I mocked it every single time I did a mock draft with myself. So interesting to see there. So Carson, who else was your loser?
I already gave my 3. Those are all my 3. Because I have the Cowboys too. So
yeah, Jose,
Rip.
Did you have another one?
Just adding on to the Buffalo Bills. I mean, we make fun of the Ravens a lot, calling Lamar, their RB1. But I mean, I think Josh Allen in a way really is their RB1. I think they've got to kind of they've got to stack their RB room in a similar way to the Ravens. Have a lot of different types of running backs that you can use in different situations. You've got to have some power backs. You've got to have some third down backs. You cannot keep relying on Josh Allen to move the chains, in these situations. And especially if you're going to keep drawing up, running plays for him, you've got to address running back. But my final loser here is the Seattle Seahawks. They took a guy, they only had a few picks. It's a pretty similar situation to the Rams. They are a solid squad. But they only had a few picks, and they took a receiver with their first pick, a guy who's probably going to be like their kick returner and just like their third guy out there, kind of like how David Moore has been for them this past few years. But you took him in the second round. It seems like a lot for a guy like that. They didn't really improve much. I mean, they took a decent corner in Trey Brown after losing Shaq Griffin. And then they took Florida O-lineman Stone Forsythe, who is a candidate for one of the best names in the draft, but probably won't develop into a starter for at least a few years. Probably they're just going to be a rotational piece. So, yeah, not much improvement from the two teams. I mean, the Seahawks are probably the third best team in the NFC West.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree on that, of course. But looking at my last loser, I would have to say the Denver Broncos. First of all, the Surtain pick made no sense to me. He's obviously the best player on the board, you could argue. But at the same time, what sense does that make? They already got Bradley Roby. They got Kyle Fuller. They got Bryce Callahan, who had a very good season. And then they got Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson in the safeties. So don't understand. They're going to throw a lot of safeties out there, which is going to make their run defense very hard. But then again, they play in a very pass-heavy division outside of the Raiders. Otherwise, why did they trade up and go for Javonte Williams when they have Melvin Gordon and Royce Freeman, who are solid running backs? I mean, I think Javonte Williams is going to project well in the NFL, but, Didn't think that was the need they should have gone for. Um, I think some things that they should have addressed is their defensive line in terms of their because they run a 3-4. So they didn't get a guy to replace Jarrell Casey. I mean, Shelby Harris had a good season, but he's getting old. I think they should have addressed something else there, or they should have addressed linebacker because their interior linebackers are not good. They traded up for Javonte Williams, and they should have taken JOK. I mean, JOK isn't the greatest run stuffer, but I think he projects well in the NFL. What we saw, if he just builds on his frame a little bit, I think he can be good. But there's also some other candidates they could have got out there as well. So not the greatest drafts I saw from them. Yeah. And then they take, a wide receiver out of Auburn, Seth Williams, who I think is talented, but at the same time, they might have one of the most stacked receiving cores already. So
yeah.
Otherwise, didn't make a lot of sense to me. So now we're going to dive into our favorite picks of the draft. I think a lot of us are going to agree on a lot of them. So, Jose, we'll start it off here. Who do you have? We'll just go through your list. Just knock down your list.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go a little bit in depth on this one. The Bengals, I really hated on this pick, Jamar Chase. But after looking, deeper into it, this is a guy who was a true outside guy for an LSU team that had Justin Jefferson also on roster, and he forced Justin Jefferson to play inside. A guy that put up almost 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns on only 84 receptions, and now is paired with his the same exact QB he had, Joe Burrow. So I think he's a generational guy for them. They obviously addressed O-line in the second round with Jackson Carman. So yeah, I mean, I take back the C that I gave to the Jamar Chase grade. But some other picks I really liked. Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions, a guy that's probably going to be a starter for them.
Yep. I had it too.
Yeah. Kelvin Joseph. I really don't want to be pessimistic about the Cowboys draft room draft board this year. I mean, I was pessimistic about it last year. We took a guy that was not an immediate need in CD Lamb, and he turned out to be great. So I'm hoping Micah Parsons can do something similar. And then the Raiders, I mean, it's really easy to hate on the Raiders after taking Leatherwood in the first round, but they did get Morrig in the second. And they also got Tyree Gillespie out of Mizzou, who, let me just read you guys his resume really quick. He spent half of the Florida game covering Kyle Pitts and gave up only one catch for 8 yards. He stopped Najee Harris on the goal line, broke up a pass against Devontae Smith, and then had a TFL on Jalen Waddle in the same drive. Gave up only 7 catches all season. I mean, I think this is a secondary that's looking kind of nice now. I mean, they got back Carl Joseph from the Browns. Jonathan Abram will hopefully come back healthy and strong. And Morrig, I mean, I don't think it's a terrible draft from the Raiders.
Now, Carson, take it away. Who do you have as your top guys?
Yeah, I'm just going to run through them. I love Rashawn Slater going to the Chargers, just growing and developing with Herbert, getting that, alignment that, is going to be steady. I'm just loving the fact that they're going to just grow together. Najee Harris on the Steelers. I think Najee is so talented. He's a beast. I think he could easily be one of the best running backs in the league in a few years. They just need to figure out the O-line. I think, they'll be able to address that. Steelers are a smart organization. But I'm just fantasy-wise too, that's going to be nice. I love Rashad Bateman going to the Ravens. Some of the highest potential out of the receivers. Terrace Marshall Jr., again, I touched on him earlier, but I love the fact, he's filling in that wide receiver 3 spot. I also had him on Ross St. Brown. It's just tough because the Lions are probably one of the worst teams to be a wide receiver on, but I think he's a hidden gem for sure. And then Walker Little, it's someone who I had the Raiders picking, but honestly, it wasn't him, but my pick wasn't that far off, a second round lineman. But him going to second round, the Jags, I think massive upside. He's a monster. I'm a huge fan of his. And yeah, also J.K. Browns. I think that was a massive steal and one of my favorite picks. But I think definitely my favorite was probably Slater to the Chargers, just because I love Herbert so much. I want Burrow to get protected, but Herbert as well. Someone keep Herbert protected. And this is the perfect guy for that. So.
Yeah, so I'll just run through my picks pretty much just like Carson was doing. So I think First, I like Joseph Asai going to the Bengals. I think they need a little bit more edge rushing help. They lost Dunlap. They lost Lawson. I mean, they got Trey Hendrickson, but Joseph Asai was a guy from Texas that was projected in the first round at some points, just early. I mean, a couple months ago in this draft process. I like the Kellen Mond pick as well. I think he's a guy that can sit behind Kirk Cousins. I think he can develop well. We saw him as a guy that was mocked at 32 even sometimes. Obviously, Kyle Trask ended up being the pick, but in the second round, going to the Buccaneers. Also, I love the JOK pick. I think it's hard pick not to like. The only problem I do see, though, is that someone brought it up that he's not the greatest run defender, and going against a powerhouse run team like the Ravens in your own divisions can be kind of hard to deal with. But I think they have some other good run stoppers. Yeah, and the Steelers. But I think the Steelers are still going to edge more to their wide receiver core. But a great pick as well. Obviously, I got to shout out my boy Brevin Jordan from Miami. I think it was a great pick to the Texans, who needed wide receiver. And I think he's the second best wide receiver in this class. I've seen what he can do. He's an athletic freak. He's not a very good blocker, which I think is the reason why he fell down the draft boards. But I think a fantastic guy who's going to have a lot of potential. Amon-Ra St. Brown was another one that I picked. And a guy, I believe, who went in the 6th round. Let me just verify that. To the Panthers, who need a replacement at guard ever since they lost Trey Turner, is Deontay Brown, the absolute freak, 6'3", 344 from Alabama. This guy didn't give up a single sack in, I think, his Alabama career, which is ridiculous. So I think another good pick that went under the radar. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of teams that, walked away with some good players. Oh, just looking at it right now, I think Alabama, Christian Barmore going to the Patriots was a good pick. They fall all the way down there to get off the number one defensive tackle. And then Tevin Jenkins falling all the way to the Bears in the 2nd round, who should have been a first-round guy to begin with, over some guy like Alex Leatherwood. So those would be my picks. And if you guys have nothing else to say, I think this is our draft recap.
Yeah.
Man,
also really liked the Niners Aaron Banks pick.
Same.
Oh, yeah.
Same.
First team All-American, I believe, if I was not wrong from what I read. So, yeah, otherwise, thank you guys for listening along. We love the support. We loved all you guys that came out there and watched our draft show. Got some good support out there, whether that be Instagram Live or YouTube Live. So we'll be coming back with you guys with some more content this week. So without further ado, this is Coast to Coast, now on the same coast, signing out. Peace.